Okay, so we're up to Perek Yud Gimel, Pasuk Chaf. It says like this: Holik, Perek Gimel Yud Gimel Pasuk Chaf. In this edition, it's on page Kuf Sameches.
We're at two.
Is that right?
Chaf.
Chaf, right? Chaf.
Oh, they said Vav.
Chaf, sorry, Chaf. Sorry. Okay. So it says like this: Holik es a Chachamim Yachkim. So if you go with the Chachamim, you become Chacham, you become smart. Uroye b'ksilim yuroye. Still like a play on words, because roye means to shepherd, and ra or roya, which is like the same letters, just slightly thing, means to become bad. L'chara means to become bad. I don't think it has connected to roye and yuroa, but we see a person who goes with the chacham becomes a chacham, and a person who's roye ksilim becomes ra. So what's going on here? Says the Gra. He brings the Chazal. It's a Mishnah in Pirkei Avos. Havi zanav l'orayis, falti rosa shualim. Right. So at first glance, like how is that connected? Well, I guess you could say that if you're a zanav l'orayis, then you're behind them, right? You're the tail, and so if you're holik as a chamim, it sounds like you're going after them, even though you could be going with them, but it sounds like you're after them. Okay. Right, so that's what we could see for the Mishnah. V'zeh holich esachachim. Kolomer, what does that mean? Tafalahem u'misavik ba'af ragleihem. I was in America a few weeks ago, and I was at a Siyam Shas, Rabbi Kalish. Yeshua Kalish, you know, one of the 5 towns. Oh yeah, very nice. No, you don't mean Rabbi Daniel Kalish?
No, Daniel.
Yeah, his father.
But not to learn. I'm sorry, he was my son's, Rabbi Fisher.
Yeah. Okay. In any event, so it says Siyam Shas, and my shoe was untied. So someone jumped down and tied my shoe. He said, "It says I'm Misavik B'Af Ragleim." You know, not that I'm Roy for that, but I guess he Moshe Majetsky, if you know, he's Moshe Majetsky. Anyway, type of thing he would do. But so that's a little bit interesting, you know, having Misavik B'Af Ragleim, and that'll make you a chacham. But the Gra is saying, if you become tuple to a chacham, right, it almost sounds like a rebbe a little bit. You know? Can I have a little more water, by the way? Becoming tuple to something, it's like you're that, right? I know, like the gabi of a big tzaddik. You know, he's like some gabayim big tzaddik. They feel like they're very connected to the tzaddik, and that makes them almost like the tzaddik. They're like part of the tzaddik. They're taking care of his needs, etc. So I guess that's the same idea. A tail of an animal, okay, it's like a little bit. It's not the most honorable part of the animal, but it's still the tail is still a lion, right? The tail of a lion is still called the lion. So that's the person who is misavik ba'af ragleihem. So he's like the tzaddik himself. I saw a interesting halacha, by the way. Chasam Sofer brings it down, and it says if you why was Chana davening so close to Shmuel? Right? No, not to Shmuel. I'm sorry. To Elkanah, right? Why was he so close to him? So he says because if you daven with it daled amos with tzaddik, your tefillos go up together with the tzaddik, right? So whenever.
Was she davening next to her husband, next to the Kohen?
No, who is it called there? Eli, right? Eli, right? Oh, right. So when you daven next to a tzaddik, your tefillos go up together with the tzaddik's tefillos. So that. Whenever I daven at Rosh Starbucks' house, I try to be within his Daled Amos, you know, so my tefillos can go up with his. But it's the same sort of idea that somebody who's connection with the tzaddik, so you become almost like part of the tzaddik. Right? It goes actually a little bit deeper. In the Sfarim, it says what's called Ibor. There's something called Ibor Neshama. Ibor Neshama. The Radva says a tshuva. He talks about opening up separate shuls. He says you're allowed to open up. Not to break into different shuls. Really, there should just be one big shul, you know, in Har Nof. Like the whole Har Nof, what is it? I don't know. 5,000 people make a Belzer shul and just have the Har Nof shul. Everyone davening the same shul. Because the halacha, Rov Am Hadras Melech. Right? The more people are doing a mitzvah, the better, So you have thousands of people davening together. That'd be great. So says the Radbaz, no. People who are similar, there's what's called Ibur Neshama. Different neshamas are meant to be together, right? Meant to be together. And it says by a tzaddik also. It says that a person who learns the Torah of a tzaddik, they actually the neshama of the tzaddik becomes part of them, and they're like part of the tzaddik. So that's when the tzaddik is nifter. But especially when the tzaddik is alive, the more connection that a person will have to a tzaddik, so the more they become tafel to that tzaddik, and the more they have the benefits of being like that tzaddik. Okay, that is as far as the tzaddik goes. Okay, right. So Yakim, you'll become smart. How does that work? It's like osmosis? No. Ki tishma mihen chachmasan v'tira ma'asehim. Right? You'll see how they act. You'll see the act. V'derech adam, it's the way of a person, Leos, nimshach midaisav masav achamishalachimo. I remember at one time when shopping with Reb Rebda, and he says, I only want a black bag, not a clear bag. I'm like, that's something to make such a big deal on. He says, yeah, it's not mechubad to walk around when people could see your groceries, So I would have never, thought of such a thing. But the tzaddikim, they're omid on these little things, and it says that, gadol shimusham yosem limudam. Seeing how they act, seeing how they take the Torah and they incorporate it into their life, and they change as a result, that's something very, very great you can learn from a tzaddik. Because you could learn the Sefer Gra, and there's a lot of chachma in here, but if you see someone who's learned it and is able to apply it to their life, that's a totally different experience. That's totally different. That's actually why my book Yedidia just came out in Hebrew. Our book. Yeah, thank you. And one of the reasons to write is the story is because you write just a book, do this, think this. It's not. If you see someone actually doing something, even if it's a fictional character, we got a lot of phone calls. Is Yedidia available for shidduchim? Interested in. So the truth is, he's married already. I mean, in the book number 2, which is coming out hopefully at the end of the year. But when you see someone doing something, it makes a bigger imprint. You see it's something live. You see it real. You see it's not just a theoretical idea. In the lashon of Kabbalah, it's called das. Yeah, the idea is just, but it's makif you, right? It's in your head, but it hasn't incorporated itself into your being where it implements itself in the way you act. That's already called das, right? Das is the ability. Das always means chibur, connection, and the more you could take these actions and connect them to your life thing, but it's hard because we might not always know. The Gra says right at the beginning of the Sefer, Pasuk Beis, it says that, where is it here? It says, L'das chochma musar l'havin imri bina, right? The Gra says that if you don't know properly the Torah, he says here, you might think, well, fasting, that's a great thing. I'll fast on Shabbos also. Owning Shabbos, not eating, right? He says here on page Vav, he says, Lamashal, she'isana kol hashvua, v'gam Shabbos, ukadoma. And it's usher to fast on Shabbos. So, the Maila of being around the tzaddik is that you see how he incorporates the Torah into your life, yeah, and you can follow in their footsteps and learn how the Torah is meant to be lived, right? Not just what it means, and that's Yakim, and that's the Chiddush here, right? That a person who goes with the Chachamim, he'll become smarter because he'll get something that you can't get that in books, You're not in most books. You're not going to find use a black plastic bag and not a thing, because kavod is something like no one's written a book on kavod really. It would be interesting probably. I'm sure someone eventually will, but it's something which is very. There's a certain person who learns in our base medrash, and whenever I have shayes about kavod, I always speak to him. You're at a chuppah mashal, right? And let's say 10 chashuv people turn up, oh my gosh, what are we going to do, right? And all of them are supposed to get the last bracha. So you have 10 people who get. So what do you do? It's a big problem, no? So Reb Rebbe taught me what to do. He says you go up to each one and you say, really you should get it, but not everyone's on your madrega. So would you be mochel to this person who's not as great as you? give him the bracha, and you say that to 9 of them, right? And eventually, the one guy gets that bracha, right? Right, right, yeah. Or look, I was once at, actually I'll say I was at a wedding because I don't want to give away what it was, and someone said like, I really am supposed to get the bracha achrit, right? Now, to Shiva, the mir was there. He was very young at the time, but it's very hard not to give him, the bracha. So I went up to him and I said, I'm so sorry. Look, this Rav, like he really feels like, and he's twice your age, and he said, of course, So you have to know how to deal with covet. It's very, very important. And you can ruin someone's life with a lack of covet. Look what happened with Kamsa Bar Kamsa, right? Al Kamsa Bar Kamsa, Nekov Yerushalayim. All of Yerushalayim was destroyed, right? So that's really, really something. Is something really, really important. And that's just one small thing. Right? I'll take this interjection. This is a book that was written by Rabbi Seltzer about my relationships with numerous Gedolim. And look, I learned many, many things from the Gedolim, right? But like one thing I can say that now is what covet is. How to be mechabed somebody else. We had a group now of 11 people from California came to learn our call, Yarchikala. We went today to Rabbi Zriel Orbach, right? This Rabbi Zriel Orbach over here. And it was very interesting. I met him like maybe 5-10 years after Rav Shlomo Zalman passed away. And I thought like it was a dream because he's so much like Rav Shlomo Zalman Orbach. And that was one of Rav Shlomo Zalman Orbach's big things was covet. How to make a person feel great, like $1 million. There's a story about a boy who was supposed to go into a mental facility. He had psychological problems. He didn't want to go. So he went into Rav Shlomo Zalman Orbach. 5 minutes later, he said, let's go. So he said, what happened? So Rav Orbach said, I'm the biggest rabbi in the world, right? He says, my job is to position rabbis in every place. I'm making you the rabbi of this institution. I want you to report back to me once a year. How's it going? What's doing? And the guy was like, yeah, let's go, because that's it. Covered, it's so much more effective. Rav Yitzchak Zilberstein, he's the Rav of Ramat Elchanan. So someone moved this neighborhood who had a television. Television in Bnei Brak, in Ramat Elchanan, it wasn't, the right neighborhood. Maybe other neighborhoods, but not that one. So what do? So some people, I walk down a certain street in Yerushalayim, and there are always people screaming about certain things, that you shouldn't be using. Everyone knows what it is, right? Or, they think you shouldn't be using it, whatever. So, but I wonder how many people are going to stop because of that. I wonder how many people. So, and also on Shabbos, right? These hafganot. So what do? They throw dirty diapers at from people, right? Oh, you know what? Now I just got hit by a dirty diaper. I'm going to do tshuva. I'm going to stop. This is like the answer to everything. I'm sure it doesn't work. It's just the opposite. It's a chil Hashem, right? How do you do it? My cousin, he goes to hafganot with kugel, yeah, and he says, you guys, they start screaming at these cars, maybe like some kugel. And come to my house, and it does amazing things. Somebody told me Avraham Avinu's secret was kugel. Like he was makar of the whole world with kugel. I'm sure he had cholent also, and what else they serve, herring, and it's probably some schnapps. But that's the way kavod is really the way to do it, and you can have such a major impact with kavod. And Rav Israel, these people, he was just so mechabed them, And Rav Shlomo Zalman Orbach, he was so mechabed you. You would walk out feeling like $1 million, and that's something you could really learn from the Gedolim, their haracha of people. I was once by the house of David Cohen when I was a chassid. He was our shadchan, and he calls me up and he says, "I'm so sorry. You forgot your baby bottle here. You have to come back and get, like it was his fault. He was sorry that we forgot, the baby bottle there. I was with Rav Asher Haley, Rav Asher Haley. He gives a shir to 1,000 people every day, and I was walking with him, and I was holding him up, I was asking him questions. He kept apologizing to me. I'm so sorry I can't talk to you properly. I have a shir. He didn't say I have 1,000 people waiting for me, right? But most people would say, can you get out of my face? I have to give a shir to 1,000 people, and you're just cocking me. That would have been appropriate. But no, such incredible kavod and such derech eretz, And if you stick to these chachamim, right, and you can get something by reading books about them, or seeing them, or speaking to them, but that's really an incredible thing. And that's what the pasuk says. If you go with the chachamim, you'll yourself become chacham. Right? That's what, because it'll rub off on you. You'll see how they act, and you'll see how they deal with people, and you'll start to emulate it. Rav David Cohen told me the Gemara says there's two things we're supposed to be doing to save ourselves from Chadli Mashiach. Anyone know what they are? Torah, Megillas B'San, right? So he said Torah. It says not just Torah, but his askas for Torah. His askas for Torah is learning Torah straight. Chazani said, when I learned Torah straight for 12 hours, I came close to prophecy, and he did. The Chazon Ish made 300 shidduchim in 1 year. In the last year of his life, 300. Every shidduch in Bnei Brak, Rav Shlomo told me, went through the Chazon Ish. And he would say, you would come and he'd say, no, not for you. Oh yeah, you get it. This, no, there's another. He had Ruach HaKodesh, like Rav Shlomo does. But the point is that that's Torah. Okay, but what about Gemil's Sanim? His askas for Gemil's means you have to do it all the time. How do you do that? How do you do 24/7, especially if you're supposed to be learning Torah or whatever else you're supposed to be doing? So David Cohen told me, he said, just with ichpatiyut, care about people. And that doesn't take any time. It's like you could do it secondary. Just everybody you meet, just care about them. You see somebody, when Rav David Cohen makes a Simchas Beis Shveva on Sukkot, there's thousands of people who walk through a sukkah. When I'm there, a few hundred people come in. He knows everybody's name. He knows everybody's issue. They walk in, he says, oh, how's your grandmother doing? I'm doubting for her. How's your son doing in Cheder? He need a Rebbe. He has everything down. And what a kavod, the Gadol Hador knows about my situation and cares about it. I've heard stories of Gedolim. 20 years later, they came. Someone came back. They hadn't seen him. He says, oh, how's your son doing? He's not 2 years old anymore. Now he's married. But the point is that that's something really great we can learn from Gedolim. That's covered. Okay. That is the good side. Okay, so now the bad side, which is Uroi Ksilim Yuroi. So we pointed out the similarity between these two words, Uroi and Roi. The Gemara says like this: Mishu Roa, somebody who's bad, Dahainu Rosh v'Katzine Ksilim. He's like the king of the fools. Vaksilim To'evelham L'Sorah. They don't want to stop doing Roa. They love it, right? Ulchem Gam Hu Yuroi. He'll also become bad. Right? Shenasara kamosim. So it means, one second. Roy Kasilim, right. Somebody who's together with the Ksilim, he'll become Roy himself. Oyuroi Ishabri Mohem. Kasher HaKadosh Baruch Hu Yavo Aleihim Eda, right? What do they call it? You're in the wrong place at the wrong time. Right? Aksil, the Gemara speaks a lot about Aksil. Aksil is somebody who acts without thinking. Right? A person who's really learned to grow very, very well and follows what he says. Every single thing, the Arizal says every minute you have 3 nisyonos. Right? And that's it means things which are very dark, things which are very fine. It doesn't mean necessarily, you're very big, but you're always being tested, how you talk, even when you're in a conversation with someone, how you lift your voice, which words you choose. There's a wonderful parsha sheet. It's called Journey to Better Speech. You know about this parsha sheet? It's put out by my son-in-law's brother, Menachem Zlaznik. And just he talks about choosing your words very carefully. The Gemara talks about a Rebbe, right? He was at a Suda and they were serving tongue. And he saw that people were forking the tongue to see which is the softest one. He says, you're so careful how you choose your tongue. Choose your words like that, And the difference between using one word and the other word is so critical, especially let's say you have to, fire somebody, fire. Let's say you're working in a yeshiva and they decide to let you go from your staff. And let's say they say, it was a mekach toast to take you in a yeshiva. What can we do? You just really messed up. How do you feel at the other end of such brilliant consolation when you've worked so hard and you did so much work? So if you say, it was such a schus for us to be part of an institution, right? We're having budget problems now, and it hurts us, but it's the same thing. He's not going to be there. Why don't you say something nice? It's like, it doesn't cost any extra money. People feel like they have to be honest. Like, what do they call it? Transparency. They have to say, we think you were the worst employee we've ever had in 50 years. We're giving you an award for the worst employee ever. So goodbye and never come back here again. Okay, like, why should you do that? Like, the guy, unless the guy was really terrible, he's trying to like cause damage. But why should it be nice? Why should it make the person feel good? So a seal is someone who just doesn't think about things. He just doesn't think about what he says. He doesn't think about what he's doing. And when you don't think, what do they call it? There's something ad hoc. What is it called? Like when you don't do something, like what is that called? What?
Impulsive?
No, it's called impulsive, right? That's right. That's the right word. But I think maybe it's ad hoc, right? What if you don't, but fills the place of the void, right? The status quo, Kilo. What happens if you don't? If I don't think, what happens? The HR comes in, right? In other words, that is the replacement for not thinking. It's not like if you don't think, so okay, maybe it'll be good, maybe bad. No, in the void of thought, the HR pulls in, and it will be the wrong thing, right? So you can't think, well, okay, oh, I'm so tired. It's been a long day. I had like 3 crackers and like nothing to drink, and I'm like dying, right? And then I have to say initially share, right? No, you say like, think about it and think, wow, what a schus. People come, and here I'm Mishlei share, and I get a chance to teach Mishlei, right? Which my Rebbe Rav Shalom Brevda said, it's not possible to fight the Yitzhar without learning the Sefer, and that's what the Gemara says. It's the ad hoc situation for not thinking, is the Yitzhar comes in, So you're either thinking or you're being guided by Yitzhara, right? As we learned, there's 6 types of Yitzhar. There's Ra, Mirma, Tai, Vechemder, Geigon. So what does it mean, Ra, Mirma? It means if you don't think about what you're saying, then inevitably something bad will come in. And it doesn't have to be like, you're a stupid idiot. It doesn't have to be that. It could just be words which are too harsh. And that's called Ra, or Mirma. It's not 100%, truthful. So these type of things. So that's Roy Xilim. If you hang around these people, it makes an impression on you. You also learn to lie, and you also learn to speak improperly. Somebody called me recently about going to a certain institution, which is not populated, which is student body is a lot of very low class individuals. Yeah. And I said, look, I have to tell you how your daughter will look in 4 years of being around these people. And that's what he's saying. If you're with Chachamim, it wears off on you. If you're with Ksilim, it also wears off on you. A person has to be very careful what neighborhood they put themselves in, what schools they send their children to, who their friends are, who they associate with, because it makes a big impression. Yeah? Okay. So that's what he says. Okay. It's pretty late, but we have a few minutes. There's a little bit of a long piece, but let's see what we can do here in the next piece. It says like this, which is really connected to what we just learned. Chatoyim tir defra, besadikim mishalim tov. So we said, if you stay with Chachamim, you'll become a Chacham. If you stay with a Rishayim, Roim, you'll become Ra. Right? So now we go into a little bit of detail. What do the tzaddik look like, and what does the chota look like? Chatoyim tir defra. What does it mean that they run after evil? So I don't know grammar so well, but I think I just mistranslated. It's not chitoyim tir defra. Does anyone know grammar? Can translate that? Tiradef. What does that mean?
That is an active.
It means it fun. It means that
it will pursue.
It will pursue you,
No,
right?
Okay.
Right. So
that is an active.
right, the chatoim will be pursued by evil, right? So what does that mean? It'll run after them, and the answer is yes. Look what the Gemara says here. Rasha tisal chatas machmas shu chaser mitzvah say, right? Since he's lacking, again, this is what we said. When you're lacking mitzvahs, when you're lacking thought, so the Eitar comes in. When you're lacking mitzvahs, then the Ra comes in. The Ra steps in. Zu asiba, maybe it fills the void as well. Zu asivi maybe day Rasha. A person could think, Yeah, that's for big tzaddikim, the people who who do all those things, and they daven Shemona Esrei and Psuki de Zimra, and maybe they daven Mincha, and what else they do, or whatever the mitzvahs that say they might be acting. You have to know that. I mean, for women it's less because they're not obligated, but a person, at least a man who doesn't do the mitzvah say, so the void will be filled with evil. Kenu kan machmas achatoyim shein chisaron mitzvah say tirdif achareyem ad shemevios al lidei ra. Right, that will it will, as it were, pursue them. Shulo tase. Right, the averas will pursue them. Okay, so the averas will pursue them. We learned this before. I believe it's the beginning of Perek Beis or Gimel. I don't remember the pasuk. I'm not so good at remember these things. But the Gemara says earlier, it says mitzvah gar mitzvah aver gar mitzvah. He's going to say it soon, right? That when you do a mitzvah, the Gemara says, you create a ruach inside yourself which doesn't feel satisfied until you do more mitzvahs. You're like dying to do another mitzvah. When you do averas, you're dying to do more averas, right? So it's like it's a building, like the snowball effect, right? The more mitzvahs you do, the more you want to do mitzvahs, and the more you'll build up that desire, right? So that's really what he's saying over here. We'll see soon that the averas will chase you because you'll feel compelled to do the averas, but with the good is just the opposite. But tzadikim yishalem tov, kolomer, but tzadikim yitain Hashem yisbarach schar matov. Will give them tov. Shiyasa od mitzvahs, because that's what we say. Because they'll have a desire to do more. Look at Avraham Avinu. He's 100 years old. He just had a major operation. It's like the hottest day of the year, and he wants to do chesed. Like, what's wrong with him? Like, take a break. I was at a wedding 2 weeks ago of a close friend of mine, and this person, I think I mentioned before, is like Avraham Avinu. He did not sit down. I was at the wedding for 2 hours. He did not sit down for 1 minute to like eat something. Every minute going to the things. Can I do something for you? Can I help you? Can I do that? He's at the coastal every Shabbos, 200 people giving them. So it's just the guy, and Del never saw the guy. He's either learning or doing chesed. Yeah, and that's because once you get into this like chesed, what's the right word I'm looking for? Like mode, right? That's right. The chesed mode. You just can't get out of it. Like you get addicted to chesed. Right, you get addicted to chesed. You're like, I have to do chesed. Please, like, give me Avraham Avinu, like you say, please Hashem, give me chesed. It's hot. There's nobody here. I want to do chesed. So Hashem sends him 3 malachim to do chesed. Okay, that's the chesed mode. Right. Oh, and that's what it says. That's what the Gemara explained, because you have this desire is chalked up in you. So that's one shot. Right. The row will run after you. But no man, and it will, Rahman al-Islam, the raw could take a person out of this world, even though before their time. V'yesh nispa blo mishpat. Hainu b'shvil chatoyim. Kamoshkas bazor yomaz zakai. It could be taken away out of the world early because of this chatoyim. But tov shalhem, shem hashanim shalhem, yinchlu asadikim. Kamoshkas sham. Right? The years that are left over, those will be given to that tzadikim, right? Bahanek shnei ma'avidlei mosifin osrei mirabah. Okay, so the other people who are deserving will get those years. A person dies early. It says one of the kares, person is 60, so that he's past the time he got kares. So what happens to the extra years? So they go to tzadikim. They're given as a present to tzadikim. That's the second shot. The third shot is really interesting. Right? It'll chase after them. Right? This is like a big plug here for Kiruv Rechokim. Right? Let's say you're on a plane, right? And you're talking to there's a lady next to you, you're talking to her, and you say, I had a taxi this Shabbos. I went to the coastal, and the guy was like very atzvani. It was Erev Shabbos and this. And I started talking to him a little bit. And he told me, my wife is from, and I'm not from. I said, well, you should be from then, but we got into like a real heated conversation. First, I spoke about Israeli politics. I showed him I know. So then we're like on the same page. And they said, you have to be from. He said, yeah, it's hard. I said, I'm not getting on this taxi before you accept one mitzvah on yourself. So he said, okay, I'll put on tefillin. So like says the Gra, that's win-win. Why? Because if they do the mitzvah, you got the schar. And if you don't do the mitzvah, you get the schar of the mitzvah. For giving tochacha. Listen to this, the Gra says right here. Yeah. And what if he doesn't listen? As a tzadikim shalom tov, hatov shalem yishalom hakadosh baruch hu l'tzadikim shochichosam k'mo sheksavtu yimala. Right? You get their mitzvahs. Right? It's almost like, let's say they're doing a lot of chesed. I mean, I won't say maybe it's not so fair, but by giving them tochacha and giving them the chance to come back, you're giving them a golden opportunity. Right? So if they listen, that's great. If they don't listen, it says that you are going to get their mitzvahs. Okay, so that's a third shot, a very interesting shot, right? The fourth shot, he says, "Chatoyim tirdavra, k'mosh ksavti lamala, shasitra achra." That's the Yitzhara. Tirdav teikav l'shalom adam hara sasa. Like the sitra achra tries to cash in right away. V'zeu shara tirdav achrayim. Right? It's like right there. It's like tempting you, and it could take like a long time to convince you to the Avera. But once you do it, he's like, okay, right to jail. It was like these undercover cops that try and set someone up, and then they come and jump out of you. So that's not good. You want to avoid that. Shiavu takif. But tzadikim yishalom tov. Tzadikim yishalom kadosh baruch hu tov shalom b'sof. Right? Achas shalom ve'ein kein shem dofi shalom b'sof. So there's a big difference. Somebody asked me today. This is like people ask me this question all the time because it's my sugya, right? But like, how come some people have such a hard life? One girl asked me in Chedvus last week. She said it says nar hayisi v'gam zaganti v'lo yisi tzaddik nasav. She says, but I see tzaddikim, they have a hard life. So what's the pshat? So I said, yeah, it's a good question. We have to read the pasuk very carefully. You know what that pasuk is, right? Where is it? No, you see the gams again? Okay, good. Yeah. Okay, yeah. Okay, just testing. Yeah. Okay, everyone knows it. Just, you say it fast, so you can forget sometimes. It's in Tehillim. Pasuk in Tehillim. Yeah, I forgot which kapitel. I believe. I hope. So the thing is like this. So the words are very meduyak. Nar ha'isi v'gam zakanti. Like, why does David HaMelech say it was a nar and zaken? The answer is because a lot of times you don't understand until you see the tzaddik was young and old, and now I understand. David HaMelech says, when I was 10 years old, I didn't understand. But now that I'm 70, right, or however old we might be, right, now I understand, right? So that's nar hisim gamzi v'lo yisid tzaddik nazav. I saw, okay, the tzaddik might have had a hard life, but he had this and this and this. When you see the whole picture of the tzaddik's life, you understand. Yeah, why it had to be that way and why I had to go through that. And that built him. The difficult experience of the tzaddik build the tzaddik. That's number one. But you don't understand, you can't understand that just by looking at it. You look at the tzaddik, Shlomo Zalman Auerbach writes they had an egg for breakfast. One egg, the entire family. 10 people split one egg, Like we have one egg, like what? Where's the second and the third egg? Like one egg, that for everybody. And that was a good day. He said some days they wouldn't have any food. But it says they were happy. Okay, when they had food, they had food. When they didn't have food, they didn't have food. Right? So, nar isigam, but it's not possible to understand that just as a nar. You have to get older and you have to get mature and see life in full perspective. And then I could see Hashem wasn't us with the tzaddik. He always gives him the direction and the kalim, the tools to deal with things. And, that's what he needs to become great. Right? It's not so. The truth is, the more challenges a person has in life, those are opportunities to grow and to be older, go up and up from the nisyonos. Right? So this is what the Gra is saying here. There's a big difference between the tzaddikim and the rishayim. The rishayim get it, right. Not always, not always, but sometimes the Eitzar is right there to give them the whack, But the tzaddikim, it takes a long, long time. Only when they to the end of their life will they be paid. Right? And also the Rishonim a lot of times are paid in this world, right? They might get, the reward as in this world, which is not so good because you get much more when you get to Shemayim. Okay. In any event, just to recap in the last 2 minutes that we have here, right? We said something very, very big you showed us today. First of all, as much as you can, have a kesher with tzaddikim, or at least read about tzaddikim, understand them, understand like what they're doing and why they're doing it, and look, just by learning Chumash, we have some big tzaddikim, Moshe Rabbeinu, Aaron, Miriam, Sipora. These are big people. Bracha and Leah. It was fun. I went to buy a gift for my wife in the bookstore. There's so many bookstores, I didn't know what to do. So I just closed my eyes and I picked out a book. And it was like such an amazing, it was like Siyat Dishmaya by Y.Y. Rubenstein. You know who he is? It's a book about great women from the past. You've read this book? Great women of the past and present. It's amazing. I just read about Leah Menu, 2 chapters. It was so well written, and it brings out their personalities like in a completely different way that I never experienced that before. And, I find, just like by understanding more about the lives of the Avos and the Imos and the Shvatim and people in Tanakh, right? The Chavetz Chaim said if you don't learn Tanakh, you're missing so much, because there's so much you gain by understanding like these great, great individuals. So, that's one thing. Real life tzaddikim and tzidkanios, yeah, and by learning about them. That was number one. And to get to the point, when you learn the Torah of a tzaddik, let me say the Gra. The Gra is right here now in this room. The Gra is in each of our neshamas. There's a little piece of the Gra's neshama. It's incredible. That's what Chazal tells us. Yeah, that's called Ibra neshama. That's number one. And number two is that the difference between a tzaddik and a rasha, right? By the rasha, he is addicted to evil, yeah, and the evil chases after him, and it will be punished right away from it. As opposed to the tzaddik, he's addicted to tzidkis, yeah, and he won't be rewarded right away. It's in the end, but he gets very, very good benefits. He gives people, if he gives people techacha, right? Either they'll listen or he'll get their mitzvahs, and it's really it's worth it. It's really worth it working on these things, because your life is so much better and more pleasant. And the biggest thing my Rosh Yeshiva said once, he said, like, why do people spend so much money on a wedding? Just make a wedding for, I don't know, $500, put some cake on the table, dance around. He said like this. He said, because a person feels happy when other people are happy, right? The more happy you make other people, the more happy you'll be, right? So you're spending all this money to make other people happy, so you should be happy, right? Somebody told me a story, I think I said this before, that a certain hotel in New York, right? They spent $100,000 to change the wallpaper because it didn't match their clothing, right? So I guess their clothing costs more than $100,000, right? So that makes people really happy, when clothing matches wallpaper. Everyone, oh, I'm so much. Wow, your clothing makes the match wallpaper. That's like so enjoyable, right? Okay, so maybe not. But the point is that a person is the most happy by making other people happy, because then you're happy, So it's even a halacha l'maisa. I'll finish with this. There's a very interesting shiloh from the Trumas Hadeshim. He's talking about politics on Shabbos. Now, someone just told me last night was a Super Bowl. I feel like was it Tuesday, Sunday night was a Super Bowl? I missed out, not really. But in yeshivas, they have like Super Bowls, Bishmar, and so they have different things, ways, deal with the Super Bowl. But the point is like this. The point is that, why do I want to bring that? This. So they don't have the super in Israel. They don't have sports so much, especially Haredim. So they have politics, politics instead of sports. So the Trumas Hadeshim asks, like, are you allowed to talk about politics on Shabbos? He says, yes, if it makes you happy. That's owning Shabbos. So then comes the Taz and says, but what if the person you're talking to doesn't like it? Yeah? You're like, I like politics, but you think it's stupid, right? So says the Taz, if the other person enjoys it, you should listen, because if he's telling you he enjoys it, you'll be happy because he's happy. And that's it, You could be happy just by making other people happy. Halacha l'maisa, right? Okay, politics on Shabbos, I don't know. But sports, whatever it might be. The point is that if you make other people happy, you'll be happy. And B'ezras Hashem, Mashiach will come soon. Amen.